I was in a school play, and somebody saw that, and they said, you want to come read for this professional play? I was in that, and one of the casting people, I guess, from Jaws 2 saw that play and brought me in to read, and I ended up getting the part. When I was cast, I was, I guess, 16 years old, and I was sophomore in high school, I think, and I was cast in March of one year, and I didn't finish working on the film till the next February. So it was basically 10 months that I was actually on the movie, which is remarkable when you consider I've got about 20 lines in the whole film. But between firing directors and reshooting and hurricanes and sharks sinking, and it was a massive chunk of time. We first went through 4 weeks of sailing training, and at that point the script was very, very different. I had like one line in that script. I didn't really have a character. I was just one of the kids on the raft. And then we started shooting with John, and about, I guess, 2 or 3 weeks, I don't remember exactly, into shooting with him, Universal wasn't happy, shut down the film, and then they hired Carl Gottlieb to come in and rewrite the script, and he did a pretty massive overhaul. And they brought in Jeannot Schwark and fired a lot of the cast. I think the fact that my part was so small in the first script is why I survived. You know, I was like, I was sort of so under the radar that nobody thought to fire me. The other thing that was cool was with Jeannot, they let us improvise a certain amount, me and Tom Dunlop. We kind of wrote a couple of our little scenes together.
Nah, she wasn't looking at me.
What are you saying? She was staring at you and drooling.
There was a lot more chance to kind of add stuff in, too, which was really kind of fun for me because I was interested in filmmaking. So it was a very slow process getting the film made. But for somebody like me who was 16 years old and on my own for the first time and fascinated by film, it was great. It was what an adventure. There was a whole squad of sailing teachers, including, you know, I guess Olympic sailors, and you know, most of us were a bunch of New York and LA kids. We didn't know sailing. And there was about 4 weeks where we just basically worked on sailing every day, which was great at times, painfully boring at others, because they would tell us to go out and sail, and again, Navarro Beach, there's nothing there. So we'd basically go out and just go back and forth. And then they made us do that too during shooting. Whenever there'd be times when the shark would be broken down and they couldn't shoot, they'd say, well, everybody go out and practice sailing. No! The other thing they had is they had this crazy military guy, Frank Sparks, I think is his name, who'd worked on the first Jaws, who was an ex-Navy SEAL, and they hired him to get us all into good shape. Because we were all, again, you know, a bunch of kids, none of us were in good shape, and he was like, it was like something like being in the Navy. Although I will say we all got in pretty good shape, it was remarkable that nobody died in the process.
Hi.
I'd like to go to the lighthouse with you.
Anytime you get a bunch of teenagers and kids in their early 20s, what happened was cliques formed. There were always groups, 2, 3, 4 people who all got along with it. I mean, there were no real enemies. I don't remember any terrible fights, although I think over the course of shooting, there were romances that went awry, and this girl was just with this guy, and then she broke up and went over to here, and then these two guys were pissed at each other because of that. But it never devolved to the point of, like, fighting or, you know, again, whenever you get a bunch of teenagers in one place together, you're going to get sex and cliques.
Mr. Quiston! Mr. Quiston! How about this belt? Shave off that dreadful moustache. England expects every man to do his duty.
That was just something that Carl wrote for me because of this whole idea of Doug being kind of this weird class clown guy.
This will be our finest hour.
I'd never worked with squibs before, and so I was completely terrified when this thing blew up that made the hole in the book. I didn't realize how loud. I mean, it was like this gunshot going off, and no one warned me. So I had this big jump reaction, which you can kind of see in the movie.
Oh, shit.
Hey, Bly, someone pop your balloon?
No problem. No problem. Do you feel your okay?
It wasn't scary because it was like, oh, it felt like a real shark. It was scary because it was a huge piece of mechanical equipment that could control only so well. That was the sled shark, which is the one they pulled behind a boat, coming at high speed, and it just worked out perfect. When they hit my boat with that thing, I got knocked, you know, into the water and got a little bit tangled up in it, got dragged along for a little ways. So there was a certain feeling of danger that went along with that. You know, they tried to be very safe and they had divers and all that stuff, but it was this however many 1,000-pound piece of equipment being dragged through the water at high speed, aimed at you, and they're kind of going, okay, we hope this will look right when it hits you. So there was definitely some scary moments with that. There's always that thing of what else was in the water that you didn't know about. Certainly you're just thinking about sharks all the time, so there's also that mindset is going on of what else might be out here. You know, and forget the mechanical ones. What about the real ones that might be hanging out?
We're almost there!
thing is gonna work. Come on, Patrick, port to port.
Keep it going, we're gonna make it, just keep it turning.
That was not a real island. I think they took a barge, and then they built plastic rocks basically all over the outside. It's a very impressive piece of production design, and I think it cost a ton of money too. And it was weird because they could tow it around, and you'd look out, and there'd be this island being towed different places. And in fact, some of the stuff was shot very close to shore. And there'd just be this island kind of surreally sitting out there, just 100 feet. The hardest thing with it was, of course, the rocks were very slippery because they were plastic rocks. So actually climbing out of the water onto it was very difficult. You couldn't get your handhold on it at all. I remember one of the camera operators actually got singed by because the problem with pyrotechnics is you never know exactly how big it was going to be. Again, this was not the time when people were doing digital effects to create that stuff. It was pretty impressive. It was pretty exciting, and I remember that was the first time I'd ever been on a shoot where they had 5 different cameras going, and it took a lot of hours before they finally shot it because they knew they only had one shot at it. Once that thing was charred, it was charred, and they didn't have extra sharks to go around burning more of them.
He did it! It's dead! It's dead!
As sequels go, I think it's certainly more successful than a good deal of them. I think it captures a lot of what was good about the first film. One of the things that's interesting when I look back at Jaws 2 is how many of the people moved on in different ways. Jeffrey Kramer, who played Hendrix, who's now a huge TV producer, to Billy Van Zandt, who's gone on to be one of the most successful television writers. I went on to a lot of other work as an actor, both in film and in theater. I was in Christine, and I was in Dressed to Kill, and I was in Back to School. But I've been a director for about 12 years and making sort of independent films. And a lot of what I learned, I learned on that on Jaws 2. Being on that set for months and months and hanging out in that editing room, watching all the dailies, watching what we did that worked and didn't work. It was a great education, and what a great way to start into a professional career.
Steven Spielberg once recalled, on the original Jaws, Steven wanted to hear what the theme was, and he went to John. John said, I'll give you the theme. It's very simple. Steven said, that's all? He said, yeah, that's it. Bump, 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 bump. Well, of course, that terrified the world.
His contribution, first of all, to the first film was absolutely imperative, because he filled in for the shark with that signature score that told the audience it's here, or it's coming, or it's been here.
In Jaws 2, John Williams had to do something more complex, because it was a more complex film.
With Jaws 2, everything had to be expanded, and he expanded his work, but still retaining his signature.
I think that it was assumed by everyone who made the film that the music would come back also and be part of the cast, if you like, another shark or another person. It would require new music, certainly, but the signature music of Jaws should be used as well. And in a funny way, it's a little bit like serials, which used to have always the same music every week, or if you had Roy Rogers or The Lone Ranger, whatever this would be, or you'd always have the same signature music on these things. So there certainly has been a great tradition for that in the serials of Hollywood. I think the unique thing about Jaws 2 and that kind of music was that it doesn't suggest itself as a candidate for a series of films in the same way that Buck Rogers would, for example. I think that perhaps makes it unique. But the tradition of revisiting the themes in a film was certainly not new. I think just new to this genre. One of the things that I never do, because I'm writing all the time, I don't look back over my shoulder of what I've done in the past week, and certainly not years before, because always something is on the desk which has to be done this day and next week. That's an apology for not being able to accurately describe the difference between music of Jaws 1 and Jaws 2. Jaws 2 seemed to be a larger ensemble. It was a bit more expansive in the way that it was done, perhaps that's true, and that the orchestral palette may have been a little bit broader or a bit longer notes. Probably was more likely an intuition on my part to sort of fill the space that emerged in the new choreography, if you like, of what the director had made. Certainly some of the original music was used, but I think probably the large percent of that score is probably new music to choreograph and support the action of the new director.
John Williams was going to do the score, which, you know, I was thrilled because I think the score of the first one, that incredible music that is known, I think that is the most well-known few chords after Bum 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 in the whole world. Everybody knows the shark thing. John Williams had a real problem on this film, is that because of this time, or this clock element, he had to start working before the picture was finished. We had a general discussion about the film, and I told him that there's more at sea, so there would be more of an element of adventure. So there was a swashbuckling element, and that there would be probably more variety, or more opportunity for variety, because the story was so different. Then he started to work. I showed him whatever I had done at that point, whatever was edited, and then whatever I didn't have, I would describe to him. I showed him the storyboards, he'd read the script. You know, a lot of this was incredible because he couldn't measure precisely, and he just was extraordinary because, I mean, these are very difficult circumstances to work under. It was not just a question of taking the theme from the first one and playing it, and that was it. I think he had to write more music, and as I said, it was much more varied, and he did some wonderful things that he found, which was the sort of, not childish, but kind of youthful counterpoint to the shark theme that is always around, you know, when the kids are sailing or when the kids are going out to sea. It was very inventive. He did a great job. I mean, there's no doubt that, I mean, his music really added an enormous amount of quality.
If you would give me the choice of doing a sequel to a film that I've already done, or to do a new score, my choice would be to do the new score, because one has been already through this material, and it's probably, maybe perhaps you could say, more fun to create, to begin anew each time. But I have, just through the vagaries and the serendipitous aspects of life, I've been associated with quite a few of these things in the Star Wars films, now having done 4 of them, and the promise of even more to come from George Lucas, where there's a body of music that's part of Star Wars, but each time we add to the corpus of that collection of music, and that's become actually quite fun. So it gets bigger and bigger all the time, a new theme here and another one there, and a development of an old one here. As things have turned in my life, in my career, in my very fortunate career, I've been able to come back and revisit some materials, to redo it, represent it, but also to re-say it with a new dressing, you know. And that's been interesting for me personally also, because I can go back and say, have I done as well this time, or maybe even better? It's always fun to go back through our scrapbook of life and see how we got to where we are at this moment, and the path that took us there, and how we've evolved in the process.
I never went to film school. It was really a vocation. I had this insane dream of coming to America and doing films. So I was completely self-taught. The most fun things to me was when I went to promote the film in France, because suddenly it was like going back. And I ran into a lot of guys who were with me in high school, so I remembered when I used to bore them to death with all my talk about movies, and I'll do this and I'll do that and nothing. And suddenly it was a reality, and something else happened, which was very funny. The original was called Les Dents de la Mer, which roughly translated means the teeth of the sea. But if you will call the second one Les Dents de la Mer 2, Mer 2, unfortunately, is an adjective which applies to merde, which in France means shit. So they couldn't release it under that title. So they released it under the title Les Dents de la Mer, deuxième partie, which means the teeth of the sea, second part.
Hello, baby, I'm home. y tus trailers, visita mi canal.